control my soul is nothing to fuck with. Woke up with
It was a running joke
of naked children. Is that what he was drawing?
Don't get involved in altercations, got too much fame for this shit, made so much money, I forgot about like who paid for this.
And he was like, all right, take your clothes off. And I was like, no. He was like, what, you thought you were gonna come over to my house and I wasn't gonna rape you?
I do not socialize with these rappers, I just destroy them. More times are good, I do not pull my phone out, I enjoy them. You're making me mad.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to be retiring this whole thing. And I'll tell you why. Because today, I am the content cop.
Nigga, go boxing ring, faggot.
So, how you guys doing? It's me, your boy, Addy, aka Cop. Today we're going to be talking about the two dumbest people I've ever seen on the internet, that being Technicals and his brother PixelDrink. Now to add some much needed context, PixelDrink is a TikToker who got big off doing My Hero Academia voice impressions.
And you already know that I'm flexed up. No doctor, but I got my...
Too much trash! Call the police, I'll tell you what you get! Call the police! Get what you fucking deserve!
Unironically, that was so ass. And Technicals is a commentary YouTuber who I looked up to a lot. I would even talk about him on podcasts. I even got hate for supporting him.
That Advil guy name dropped Technicals in an episode who was definitely working on a Hacks Did Nothing Wrong video.
They were both a part of the Smash community. Technicals making commentary videos revolving around the Smash community, calling out people like Esam, Risu, Nairo, people in that regard, and PixelDrink making My Hero Academia TikTok videos. God, I hate this stupid hat. The original, the classic. But the reason I'm talking about them right now is not because they're great and fabulous. This isn't a dick-sucking video. This video is a criticism video. Surprising, I know. So what do I have to criticize about some of the best content creators on equal platforms right now? Well, Technicals and Pixel have gotten into a lot of hot water recently. Technicals made a video on Zero, one of, if not the best Smash 4 player of all time. And in that video, he talked about his allegations with Katie. Katie was a 14-year-old girl at the time, and Zero had sexual talks with her when he was above age. And he said to her that, actually, I'm gonna just play the Augie clip.
Bro, shoving ice cubes up their pussy. You like 14-year-olds shoving ice cubes up their pussy.
No one said that, but you definitely
if you're gonna be dishonest to me, I'll say everything I want to say about you. That told a 14-year-old to shove ice cubes up her pussy. She'd be allowed to make videos for children.
So yeah, basically Zero told her to
shove ice cubes up her pussy.
And his defense was that this was only a one-time thing. He did not talk to any other minors. It was purely just this.
Our question is Zero a pedophile? But when it comes to a label that would suggest past, present, future, and potential harm of children, I think it's important to make sure that the shoe fits nice and snug. Even after gaining significantly more money and more access to minors, there's been no new cases.
Which I believe is a very valid point. If you have the same brain capacity as the Ralphator, the argument is so astronomically stupid that I don't even know how to argue it. Because if you use that logic in real life, in the law, which Technicals loves to do, half the people that get arrested for one count of pedophilia should not get arrested. But someone who is a million times worse than Zero is PixelDrink. So let's talk about PixelDrink, also known as BJ, also known as Turtle SSB, was a Super Smash Bros. Coach for the team Shogunate Gaming. He used to coach the players in the Las Vegas area, because that's where him and Tech are from, and he was pretty good at it. He was nice, charismatic, he was funny, people enjoyed his company, seemed like a nice guy. Then, everything changed when the pedophiles attacked. Okay, that's a bit too much. Now, this is the portion I'm going to be talking about PixelDrink's allegations against him and just general facts against him. And to make it hit close to home and, feel like a safe environment for Tech and Pix, I'm going to cover it the same way Technicals would. So, let me just... See? I thought it was kind of clever. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to list off each one of the allegations made against PixelDrink and cover what happened, his or Technical's response, and just kind of try to dispute as much as possible. So, let's get started. So, for our first point, let's talk about probably the most mainstream and big. After he sold out to the industry, the man... That was so stupid. Let's talk about the most well-known accusation so far, the group chat. So what is the group chat? Well, the group chat is a... A group chat. So the group chat was a chat made out of Technicals crew, which involved high schoolers, Pixel, and all the other coaches that were in Shogun 8 gaming. The group chat was usually really busy. There was people talking all the time. It was very active. And BJ, who was one of the coaches at the time, was very active in the chat. He had friends in there. He talked to these kids pretty much every day. So the point of the group chat was to get as many people in the Las Vegas area to just hang out and interact, set up friendlies, tournaments, stuff like that. If you've been paying attention to Augie or Nicholas the Oreo recently, you know that it's a little bit more than that. And this group chat was filled with minors. Like, pretty much everyone in there was a minor. And Technical's brother thought it'd be a really good joke if he sent a dick pic, lewd images himself, and lolly porn of 2 of the minors in the group chat. He's a pretty good comedian. He's up there with Bill Cosby and Louis C.K. And so when Augie and Nick called out Technicals and his brother for these past actions, they had this to say. So the defense that Technicals brought up was that him sending his dick was a one-time thing. It was a joke. His brother has a weird sense of humor. Everyone else in the group chat was drawing sexual images of each other. And no one complained to Technicals, the person who owned the group chat, saying that they were traumatized or whatever. Along with Technicals' recent tweets about the situation, him and his brother have already made videos and twit-longers talking about the situation.
This is in regards to the twit-longer about my brother. Yes, I was in the group chat. I was in every group chat because I was the leader at the time. I was the leader of the crew that we made, which was this gigantic chat group of people in high school, adults, all this other shit.
In the group chat that I was in, that had people from 13 years old up into, I was the oldest, I was 19. Glad that that really young person wasn't exposed to it, but the rest of the minors that were in the chat, like, remember, it was like I was the only adult in that chat.
I also want to make it clear that he never went out of his way to personally DM, singularly, any of these people.
Reached out to the person that I drew art of in attempts to, like, apologize to them, because I do feel really bad. They haven't responded to me yet, which makes sense. I'd still like to get in contact with them.
Me, along with everyone else, came to BJ and told him that was a really fucking stupid thing to do. Don't do something like that again, because we are in a group chat where, you know, it might be bad for other people. Told him it was stupid, never to do it again, and guess what? He didn't do it again.
Not nude. I'm wearing a towel. I'm not nude in those photos. Like, I have pants on or like a towel on. That doesn't like make it better, but at least I didn't spam the chat with fucking nude photos of myself.
So if you can't tell, there are a lot of inaccuracies with what they both said. Originally, I had a theory that Technicals wrote BJ's response and apology, but I guess that wouldn't make sense, would it? With all these inaccuracies and pretty much lies thrown against the wall, seeing which one would stick, I feel like it's impossible to tell who's telling the truth and who's not. But even if we were to believe Tech's response and apology and everything, his was the most charitable. He gave as much leeway to BJ as possible and himself. If we were supposed to believe him, there's still some more lies and inaccuracies, so you can't even believe it. Do you remember when Technicals in his response said that,
told him it was stupid, never to do it again, and guess what? He didn't do it again.
I'm gonna just throw a spoiler alert real quick. He did do it again. In the twit-longer that they're responding to, there's 2 instances of it. One of them was in 2016 and the other one in 2017. So I have one question for you, Tech. Which one are you responding to? If you're referring only to 2016, then that means you're completely ignoring a year later. But if you're talking about 2017, that means you're a fucking idiot. Either way, you're ignoring major context. Before you guys say, wait, I've already seen John, I just want to talk about this. Oh, I found it first, fucking idiot. I even asked some of the people that were in the group chat, and multiple people said that Technicals was in the group chat, but he purely just lurked. He didn't really do anything, to the point where it was like he wasn't even there. So in the group chat, BJ didn't just send his dick twice. He also decided to join in on this really funny joke that they did, which was drawing lolly porn of the minors in there. He drew very explicit porn of 2 minors, one 17 and the other 16, having gay sex, which is not very great. But along with that, he also decided to post it on Rule 34 and his own Twitter account. By the way, I'm gonna interject a little bit. While I was researching BJ, I found a lot of shit in his past, especially his old Rule 34, and I found some lewd drawings of Ness from Earthbound, who is a 13 to 14-year-old boy, and by lewd I mean he was sucking dick. It's a very weird thing, but just keep that in the back of your mind until later on, or don't. Actually, don't. He also drew furry porn, which is great because I'm glad he's still keeping in the family. When the Twitlonger originally came out, the person who made the Twitlonger and was in the hentai that BJ drew said that BJ sent the image to the group chat, and the person who wrote the Twitlonger said it was probably one of the most horrifying experiences of their entire life. So do me a favor and please imagine how they must have felt when BJ posted on 2 of his public platforms. That must have fucking sucked. The fucking dickhead. Breaking news, gamers. And there is no time for that drama alert intro. Let's just jump into it. So let me give you the brief summary of the new information that we learned from these group chats. And the person who wrote this is very, very close to the situation and was one of the people throughout all of it to be there. 1, Technicals only made one of the group chats. The rest of them he did not create and most of the time was not even involved in. 2, there were a few adults in the situation, but none of them were sexual except for Pixel. Pixel was overly sexual with these kids and would even bring up sexual topics in the middle of random conversations for no reason. 3, Pixel made NSFW art of these kids around 5 times, and it was not an inside joke. It was just something that he did. Multiple people in the situation were traumatized due to the acts that Pixel did, and Technicals actively avoided them and did not try to help in any way. And finally, Technicals and Pixel embellished a lot and tried to self-insert as much as possible without any real reason to. I've seen a few responses from other commentators saying that they don't know if they believe this or not, and I personally do, because majority of it is just saying that Technicals and Pixel both lied in their apologies. And I mean, they definitely did. They definitely spun the situation as much as they could, make it seem like they were either more involved or less involved, depending on the situation that it would come up in. Their responses were just filled with lies. And even now, Technicals is still contradicting himself from his original statement to now.
Every group chat.
I was in the group chat. I was in the group chat. I was in the group chat. I was in the group chat. I was in the group chat.
I was in the group chat. I was in every group chat.
Come on, man. Corbett had nothing to do with that, man. He was just chilling on Twitter. What the fuck? But yeah, I just want to keep you in the loop. Let's go back to the main video. Regarding all this stuff, when it came back up into the public eye, Tech had a weird response. The way he should have handled it is just bowing down and say, yeah, that happened. That sucks. I've already talked to my brother. He hasn't had any other fuck-ups. But no, what he did is he spurred out on Twitter, said that, I've already responded to it. I can't be criticized again. And said that it's a non-issue because he's already responded. Even though I've already proved his response was bullshit. I decided to take a page out of Technical's book because he just loves involving law somehow more than he likes making bullshit points. So I decided to take a page out of his book, and I even contacted a lawyer from Las Vegas, where BJ and Tech are from, about all the shit with BJ, and asked him what would be BJ's sentence if he was tried and convicted. And this is what he said.
He could easily be prosecuted for various federal and state offenses and be required to register as a sex offender if convicted.
So take that with the amount of salt that you would give a actual lawyer. So the next allegations I'm going to be talking about in regards to BJ are cover some very sensitive matters, and it can be very triggering to some people, which I completely get. If you want to skip them, just go to this time frame, or I'll just put the chapter and you can skip it. I don't mind. So let's jump in. So before I even talk about all this, I have to say, to protect myself and everyone involved, that these are all allegations. Sure, I have my opinions, and I'm going to give those later, but nothing is confirmed yet by a legal team or even by both parties. So it's still up in the air. It's still allegations. So on July 7th, a Twitter user that goes by, however the fuck you say that, also known as Sarah, made a Twitlonger about BJ, saying how she and him once dated and he had raped her. Along with that, she also claimed multiple accounts of pedophilia and him getting with underage girls. But right now we're going to be focusing on the main parts of the Twitlonger, the parts of her own personal experience. So here's the Twitlonger.
My experience with Turtle SSB. There is something that I've had to live with for over a year now. Since it happened, I was always too afraid to say anything or speak up in fear of causing drama or being demonized due to his status in the Smash scene and seeing how liked he was in the community. It's also something that I've avoided speaking about because I've tried my hardest to pretend it didn't happen, and speaking about it will only cause me to relive it. However, I feel it's important for me to share my experience with Turtle, not for myself, but because I notice how many women, especially younger women, are in the same community as him. Trigger warning, rape and pedophilia. Last year, in February 2019, I was raped by Brendan Jackson, Turtle SSB. Him and I were having sex, and I told him that I didn't want him to come in me. I was too nervous, and it was too risky. When I told him I didn't want him to do it, he told me that he was going to anyways. I kept saying no. I said no at least 5 times. But again, he kept saying he was going to anyways. I ended up giving up on arguing with him. He insisted on doing it, and I couldn't win that fight. I didn't want to have sex at that point, and I was too scared to tell him to stop. Instead of using my words, I tried to nudge him off of me. For context, we were in missionary position. He was on top of me. I'm not sure if he did or didn't get the hint, but nonetheless, he never cared about my boundaries of when I wanted to stop having sex or when I didn't want him to come in me. So again, it was a fight I wasn't going to win. He turned me around and had sex with me from behind. I didn't want to have sex anymore, so my vagina was completely dry at that point. It hurt, and I couldn't say anything about it. He ended up finishing inside of me, and as soon as he pulled out, I was bleeding everywhere. My whole body was in pain. It felt like I was experiencing period cramps. I bled for the entire day. He ended up calling me a month later and told me, "Sorry for being pushy, I guess." While BJ and I were in a relationship, he added me to one of his Discord servers, and I was able to scroll up to see previous conversations. I saw he sent a hyper-realistic drawing of a naked child. They couldn't be older than 12. He sent it along with a sexual message about the child. I later found out that BJ had a 16-year-old girlfriend while he was 20/21 years old. I was also told by one of his old friends that he had sex with a 15 to 16-year-old girl while at another friend's house. Thank you for reading this, to everyone that did. I genuinely hope that Brendan, Turtle, has grown since this happened, and I don't want anything bad to happen to him. I do believe that people can learn and grow. That's really all I hope for. However, that doesn't excuse any of what he did, at all, and I believe he should be held accountable. I feel like that's the only true way to grow from your mistakes. In the meantime, I really do advise the girls and women in the Smash scene to just please be careful. Not only from him, but any man in that scene, and in general, who's older than 18. Thank you.
So in Sarah's twit longer, there's some main claims that we need to take away. Again, all allegations, but still very important. That being, BJ sexually assaulted her. BJ made a lot of jokes about lollies in a Discord server with his friends, and BJ did it a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old when he was above the legal age. Now both BJ and Tech both responded to these claims, and let's go for BJ's first. Now, I don't really feel like editing BJ's response, so let me just summarize it real quick. BJ confirmed that him and Sarah had sex on Valentine's Day, but he claimed that instead of her begging him to not finish inside of her, it was completely consensual, and he was making sure that she felt as comfortable as possible. Next claim, he admitted to showing lolly hentai, but he claimed it was all jokes. You heard that one before. I do think this line is really funny. Lolly hentai is gross, and I shared it to gross on my friends. I would not seek out the image otherwise. Rule 34 says otherwise, but that's for later. Now for the two 16-year-old girls. For the first one, he claims that she was actually 17 at the time when he was 20, and the age of consent in Nevada is 16. And for the other girl, he said that this was just a rumor, and that Sarah was in the wrong for just believing it. And now let's watch Technical's response.
People that are using this situation where there is some truth to it and are now going back and retroactively adding validity to the statements made about rape, those are false. That is a false allegation. You can clearly see the woman that made those allegations is retweeting all the stuff where he's losing his job and all this. It's very opportunistic, and I think that person is disgusting for making that twit longer. Please do not support that person without having first read Turtle's response, because she has been harassing him for years. This is not new. Of course she's excited. I'm not going to get canceled for it, and I won't really care past this response. So, yeah. That's all I have to say.
So to give props where they are, I will compliment BJ and Tech for how they respond to two things. One, Tech saying that you need to hear both sides of the argument before making your opinion. At least that was my understanding of what he meant by this clip.
Please do not support that person without having first read Turtle's response.
And I have to compliment BJ on the way he handled the second allegation where it was just rumors, and that is completely true. I was even allowed to talk to Sarah herself and have an interview with her, which I'm going to play later, and I asked her about the rumors, and she said that they were purely just rumors, and she had no evidence, which I believe muddies the credibility of all the other allegations, not just hers, but everyone else's, and it was highly irresponsible for her to have it. But besides that, that's where all my praises end. While I was talking to Sarah, I want to show you guys one screenshot she gave me when she tried to reach out to Technicals to give her side. It's him saying this, and I quote, "Until you have some actual receipts, instead of corrupt conversations, you can drop this fake act with me. I see right through you," which is hilarious because both his and BJ's response to what Sarah said barely had any evidence or any conversations at all. Technical's response had nothing, and BJ's had a few screenshots that proved nothing and were cropped out of their mind. Truly, I don't understand why he can't at least hear her out, at least for a little bit. But if we're gonna stay by his logic, then we have to clear the board, because none of it matters, because none of it counts as real evidence, because there's no real screenshots or anything of the sort. Which honestly doesn't seem very fair to people who made Twitlongers, and even to BJ or Tech, to just disregard everything they said. So instead of doing that, let's give it some more context. Let me show you the interview I had with Sarah, and I'll try to explain some of the allegations and do my best to make sense of it all. So here's the interview. First of all, who are you?
My name is Sarah. I go by SarrahNeko on the internet.
So what's your association with BJ, also known as PixelDrink or Turtle SSB?
I'm his ex-girlfriend.
And you came out with a Twitlonger about him, right? Can you explain what the allegations you said were and give your side?
Okay, so basically, I met him, it was November of 2018, probably like 2 months after I turned 18. My friend Gabby introduced me to him. We met, and then we met in person like a week after talking. And then that day he asked me to be his girlfriend, and I said okay. And then he dated for about a month, really on and off, strangely, for like it only being a month of dating. The relationship was really rocky, like there was a lot of red flags. And this was right after BJ had gotten kicked out of what they call like our local hardcore scene in Vegas. Basically, it's just like a bunch of people who like listen to hardcore music, go to concerts. He was really big in that scene, and he got exposed for being a pedophile. But this is when he was dating his 16-year-old girlfriend when he got kicked out of that like whole scene. And then I had met him coincidentally when that happened. And he obviously didn't tell me. His friends didn't tell me either, of course. But our first really big fight, because he wasn't taking me on dates or like hung out in the room and like slept with each other and then like slept all day. He got really mad at me and like blocked me on everything and then unblocked me about 3 days later. And so we got back together. He promised that he would like treat me better, whatever. And then one day I went over to his house and we had just got done having sex. And he tells me, he was like, "Yeah, you sound really sexy in bed. Like you sound really hot." Because you sound a lot like a lolly, because I have a really small voice. And I thought that was weird, because I was like, ew. I was like, lollies are like little kids. And he was like, "No, it's not like that." And I was like, all right. And then he brought up his Rule 34, and then he showed me his Rule 34. And there was like a lot of drawings of CP, like naked children. But drawings, like, you know that one guy, what was his name?
Shadman?
Yeah, it was like his artwork. Yeah, he showed me his Rule 34 and he did it to me and he kind of laughed it off, but it was still weird. But then I saw that and I felt really uncomfortable, so I left and I went home immediately. And then he called me and he was like, "I promise I was kidding. I'm sorry." We talked about it and I was just like, "Yeah, that stuff makes me really uncomfortable." He apologized. We got back together. And then we broke up because he wasn't improving. And that was the last time we broke up. And then in March of 2019, he reached out to me on Instagram to say hi and check on me. And so we got back in touch and then we started flirting and talking like casually and then catching up. On February 12th, he invited me to sleep over that night. And I was like, okay, yeah, we can hang out like just as friends. Because I wasn't ready to like have sex with anybody at that point. Like I was like just, and he was on the same page apparently. So we were just going as friends, and I went over to his house and we had planned to like have a movie night and like do face masks and just hang out. And I was on his bed and he was like, all right, take your clothes off. And I was like, no. And he was like, what, you thought you were gonna come over to my house and I wasn't gonna rape you? And I was just like, oh. I don't know if I should laugh at that or not. Like, it was really weird. And then we forgot about it and then we had a good night. We did end up having sex with each other that night, and then yeah, I slept over. The next day, it was really weird because he was being really mean to me. I remember he like looked at me and he told me that I looked really ugly, and he kept commenting on how ugly I looked. And then he invited me to go on a date for Valentine's Day, and he was like, well, I felt really bad for not being a good boyfriend to you, and I feel like I'd make up for it by taking you on a date. And I was like, okay, yeah, like that'll be nice. It was weird because I Ubered to his house and he wasn't answering the door, and I ordered my Uber to go back home, and I wish I had taken that Uber back home. But as soon as the Uber got there, he opened the door, and so obviously I stayed. And we get ready, we go to the cafe, we have a good talk, and it was a good time. Like, we ate and we drank coffee and it was nice. And then we went back to his house, and I guess this is worth mentioning. The night before and probably a few weeks prior, we had mentioned like sleeping together and like went into details of what we would do when we slept together, and the topic of like him finishing inside of me was something that we both talked about, and neither of us had done it at that point, and we wanted to try it out, and I trusted him because he trusted me too. Fast forward to Valentine's Day, we had a good date, whatever. We get to his house, and then we fell asleep, and then we woke up in the middle of the night, and then we started to have sex, and a couple minutes into it, I was like, hey, I'm really scared, like I don't want to do this anymore, and I said that word for word, and he was like, no, it's fine. And I was like, no, I really don't want to do this anymore. And then I became more like persistent and adamant on not wanting it. And he was like, no, I'm going to do it anyway. You'll be fine. And he kept saying, I'll be fine. Like, he kept telling me, he was like, no, just like, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. And I was like, BJ, like, I don't want to. I was just like, I'm scared. Like, I don't want to get pregnant. I don't want, like, I just, and he's like, no, it's okay. I'll just get you plan B. And I was like, no, like, let's just wait. Like, I don't want to do this. And he said no again, and so I gave up, and then I was just like, alright, like, there's no point in me asking him to stop anymore, because he's just gonna do whatever he wants anyways, and he did. It got to a point where, like, I started pushing him off of me. We were in missionary, and I started pushing him off of me, and he wasn't, like, he was resisting. So it got to a point where, like, I completely gave up because he wasn't taking me pushing him off of me as a sign. He wasn't taking me saying no as a sign for him to not do what I didn't want him to do. And so I gave up, and I think he knew that because he ended up turning me over onto my stomach, and we ended up doing it from, doggy position, I guess. And then I remember, like, not wanting it so bad that my body, like, dried up, and I was no longer, like, wet, because I just didn't want to have sex anymore. I don't know, like, I just let him finish whatever he needed to finish, because he wasn't going to take no for an answer anymore. He wasn't to begin with. And then he turned me back over on my back, and then he finished, and when I got up, I was bleeding everywhere, like, really, really bad. And he was just like, oh, like, that's gross. Like, he made me feel bad about it. And then I went to bed, and he got me a plan B, and then we got into an argument, like, 2 days later, and then he, actually, no, like, probably, like, a week later. Then he blocked me, and then I had a pregnancy scare, and my doctor told me I was pregnant, like, a month, maybe, like, late into March. She told me I was pregnant, and so I told him, and he got really mad at me for some reason. And then he told me to get an abortion. Like, he was, like, in the middle of a Walmart on FaceTime with me, like, yelling at me to get an abortion. And then we hang up. He calls me back in a couple of hours later, and he was like, you know what? Like, I'm sorry. I want to keep the kid now. And then he was like, by the way, I'm sorry for being pushy that one time. He's like, I think it's my fault. And I was like, yeah, thanks for apologizing. That was the last time I talked to BJ on the phone. And then we DM'd in June of 2019. He DM'd me to hook up with me. I sent him that long paragraph of me saying that, like, I forgive him for what he did and whatever. And then his response was like, Papa Titty. And I was like, okay.
Did you, when you know, you guys did it and you felt like you didn't have, like, before you even started, did you feel like you didn't have a say in like,
no.
did you feel like trapped, like you just couldn't go home, or like you had no way of just like leaving or like stopping him?
Before we had sex, I trusted him enough to, like, if I wanted to stop, he would have stopped. Because him and I have had, like, situations where we've role played, like, really, you know, like, really, like, we've done, like, CNC and stuff like that, like, crazy stuff where consent is very important. And we use safe words and stuff, and he's always respected my boundaries in the past when we were in a relationship. So I expected it. I went into it with the expectations of him respecting me if I wanted to stop or if I didn't want to do anything that I wasn't comfortable with. And that's why it was so easy for me at first to say, hey, like, I don't want to do this. And it took a few tries for me to be like, okay, he's not gonna let out.
So you were okay with it even when he said no before you guys started, because you assumed that if you just didn't enjoy it halfway through that he would just stop.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So you mentioned that he had a group chat with his friends, right? Where
Discord server?
Yeah, Discord server.
Yeah.
Where
he had a Discord server with about, like, 3 of his friends. I think it was, like, actually, no, it was, like, 4 of his friends. They were all Smash players, and we would play Roblox sometimes.
This wasn't the group chat filled with minors, right?
No, this was, like, a private Discord before he had any, like, following. It was just for, like, when we would play Smash or, like, Roblox.
Okay.
There was a way, I don't know if Discord does this anymore, but if you get added into a server, you can scroll and see the old messages, right? Like, before you were in there. And that's when I found out all, like, the CP drawings, too, aside from his Rule 34. And he was the only one sending it, and his friends wouldn't laugh at it. He would just send it and be like, I'd fuck.
That's one thing that he claimed in his response to you, was that he sent this to his server for shock value and for comedy. And you got access to the server, right? Correct?
Yeah, I did. I don't know if I still do.
Do you think that he genuinely did that for shock value and humor, or do you think he was just expressing his emotions and used humor as a cop-out?
Yeah, I feel like he was, like, laughing about it for a second, and then, like, he was, like, laughing at it, but I think he was, you know, there's, like, an underlying truth behind it, you know, like, there's truth to every joke.
Yeah.
Like, I personally wouldn't joke about that. I don't think any other, you know, person who doesn't think like that already would joke like that. I don't see any shock value in it. It's just uncomfortable.
So after hearing that, you must have 2 states of mind. 1, she's a lying bitch, shouldn't be trusted. Or 2, BJ is the scum of the earth and doesn't deserve any forgiveness. Well, before you make your judgment so fast, let's take a step back. And with this newfound evidence, let's look at all the claims made against him. And let's see if we can break down some. First, starting with the easiest, that being the lollies.
It's like, yeah, I mean, it's just what he's into.
Many of the same criticisms that Tech has against Jisoo are laughably the same. But to be fair, this isn't even tip of the iceberg. Many of the awful allegations that are proven against Pixel start now, and it starts with 16-year-olds.
Figaro. So since Tech and BJ both claim that him dating a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old were just rumors and we shouldn't listen to them, that's completely fair. Except for the fact that Technicals put rumors in his Risu video.
That also raises a couple of eyebrows regarding a rumor that's been going around the community for quite some time. I only do this for fun, so
take this with a grain of salt.
So as far as I'm aware, it's fair game. But to be completely fair, I do not stay with the validity of any of these claims.
This is a rumor, and I in no way support the legitimacy of it.
And they're just, rumors that I've heard. I do this for fun.
I only do this for fun. So.
Which obviously negates any criticism I could ever have for including rumors that have incomplete or zero evidence for them, and that I am extremely biased towards the person that I'm making this video on, of course. Now, to be fair, out of all the claims that are made, this is going to be the one that has the least evidence and is probably going to be the hardest to prove because Sarah and BJ, and including Tech, gave zero evidence for any of their claims, so it's purely going to be speculation. But like the Lolly situation, a lot of it has a bunch of people that are not connected tell stories that seem to interlock. Like the screenshot Sarah gave me of someone reaching out to her after a twit lung had come out, talking about how BJ had a girl that looked around the 16, 17-ish age range at a event. Now, that doesn't really prove anything, but if true, not a great look for his claims. So in my interview, I even asked Sarah about the 15 and 16-year-old claims, and she said that BJ told her directly that he dated a 16, 15-year-old, and the other one was just rumors on Twitter. So, who did you hear the rumor from about him having sex with a 15-year-old to 17-year-old? Like, where did you...
Oh, he told me. It was his ex-girlfriend, Sarah.
Okay.
Because they had dated for probably about a year. She was 16 when they broke up, so she had to have been 15.
So that was the second 16-year-old that he dated, correct?
No, that's the only one that I know for a fact about. Okay. The other one, I think what someone on Twitter told me about them, but I don't know too much about it to go off of it.
Because in his response, he claims that he dated a 16-year-old when he was 20, and then in a different paragraph, he was responding to you that you claimed that he had sex with a 15 to 16-year-old.
Yeah, I believe that was someone on Twitter telling me, but I don't have proof on that. I don't really know, so okay. I can't go too much off of that.
Now, I personally believe it's an awful idea to blindly accept someone's narrative without any proper evidence. However, I do believe that she deserves some credit, some benefit of doubt, considering she is one of the only people in this entire story to have proper evidence, and one of the only people in her stories to give proper evidence and have a sincere narrative that actually has proof to it. Even more so, Tech and BJ were shown moments ago just contradicting their own stories. I completely understand why someone would just believe Sarah's story without any hard evidence, purely based on how unreliable Tech and BJ are. Speaking of which, Tech, BJ, my boys, I know you guys are watching this video. It's more than likely gonna happen, and I want this to be very, very clear before you send a Twitter hate mob on me. I do not support any allegations without proper evidence. But that being said, you guys need proper evidence. If you're gonna make these massive claims like you shouldn't believe Sarah's story without the proper evidence or without the proper whatever, then you need to be the one to give that. You can't just expect people to believe you have to have a repeated history of lying in responses and then not bringing any new evidence to the table while Sarah has evidence and has not lied so far. And you have to understand that you guys completely fucked yourself over. So if you were to gain anything from this, is that you need to have proper evidence. So please, on Twitter or whatever platform you want, post some actual evidence. And if you do, I will make a pinned comment, I'll make a tweet, whatever you guys want, saying that I was wrong, and I will remove this section of the video. But until then, you guys are fucking stupid. That was just a little bit of hyperbole and a little grandstanding on my part. But now let's move on to Sarah's most damning claim. BJ's rape allegations. So the interview I had with Sarah basically just gave us some more info on the whole situation. So now all we have proof on is that yes, they did have sex on Valentine's Day and it was consensual, and then their stories diverge. Was BJ finishing inside of her consensual? Now, both parties haven't really given that many screenshots or much evidence to prove that it was or wasn't. There was this message that Sarah put in her twit longer about her DMing BJ saying that she forgives him and him saying Papa Titty. But besides that, there's not really anything except for this screenshot that Sarah sent me of her DMing her friend as soon as they finished having sex and BJ left. The DM messages are her talking to her friend, obviously distressed, not really in her right state of mind, and having a panic attack. But there is one thing that is very notable. It's her talking about the reaction her body had, which is the exact same as in the twit longer. So there's two things that could have happened. One, Sarah was telling the truth that it happened, or at least the reaction. Or two, she's a big brain Giga Chad manipulator who thought of this story on the spot to manipulate her friend and no one else, because these chat logs haven't seen a light of day until this video. So it wouldn't really make sense for her to completely lie and bullshit to her friend for no reason, and for this screenshot not to even gain light from this screenshot in my interview with Sarah. And by the way, I'm gonna put the full thing in the description. I have a hard time not believing Sarah that he at least came inside of her without her consent. So to be as charitable as possible to BJ, at the very least, he's just a bad boyfriend. He used Sarah for her body. He didn't try at all in the relationship. He was lazy boyfriend. He was abusive. He would yell, get into arguments all the time, and was just kind of a dick. But at the very, very worst, BJ is a sexual assaulter who is manipulative, abusive, and just a complete incel. Whether that be saying Papa Titty when she was confessing her feelings, or showing her lolly hentai and comparing her to a lolly. Very, incel-y activities. But that leads me to the final section of this video, the conclusion. God, I'm so ass at transitions. So what a lot of you are probably thinking, especially if you're a Technicals fanboy, and rightfully so, is what does this have to do with Technicals? This entire video has just been about BJ and the fucked up shit they did. Besides being vaguely involved in the original stories and not really doing much recently, besides defending himself and his brother, he hasn't really, it's mostly just BJ's drama, and Technicals just trying to do his best to clean it up. Well, it's less about what he actually had in the physical events or online, more about what it represents. From Zero to BJ to Nairo, any point of this entire thing, you can always come back to this point, which is taking accountability. For Zero, it was Technicals trying to walk back the accountability that Zero had already taken. For Nairo, it was Technicals trying to make him take accountability. And for BJ, for him and his brother's lack of accountability. Because whenever either one of them, especially Technicals, apologizes, it's always, yes, I take accountability. But these minors did this. I fucked up, but Zap tie? It seems very disingenuous to me. And I personally believe a commentator, especially in the high regards of Technicals, should not even have these issues. I personally believe if you're a commentator, especially one as ruthless as Technicals, no matter if they're friends, family, or just a random ass person online, you should be able to criticize them. At least make a tweet about them, not this bitch ass response where you basically walk back everything they did. Because realistically, if you can't call out your brother, and at least in a tweet saying what he did was fucked up and you do not support him, then you shouldn't be allowed to criticize anyone at all. At least in cases like these, which involve minor safety and sexual assault. And regardless of how many times you said you called out your brother or you denounced his claims or even denounced him, it still doesn't make up for you shutting him out in podcasts and videos, letting him network with some of the biggest commentary channels of this era, supporting his TikToks, and being in his community Discord server with over 2,000 13 to 17 year olds. Do you not understand how terrible that makes you look? If you had to call out your brother for sending dick pics to minors and allowing him to be in another environment where he can be around minors, regardless if he did it or not, that's just a terrible look. Are you seriously that fucking stupid to not realize that? And hell, I completely understand that it's your brother. Regardless of what he's done, you're still going to be there for him. And I completely get that. But in the public, you are not Brennan. You are Technicals. And your brother isn't BJ. He is PixelDrink. So instead of not supporting your brother BJ, do not support PixelDrink. Or at least denounce him and not associate yourself with him. No matter how much you try to get past this and make people forget, it's still going to come up time and time again. And you are going to be one of the main people that is going to be revolving around this drama. The more he grows and the more you grow, the more this is going to be coming back into the public eye. And I can promise you that next time this comes up, you will not get out as easy as you have so far. So there's two things you could do. One, you could do what I told you not to do, completely ignore it, but it'll come back up eventually. Or two, the thing I would do, and the thing I think you should do, publicly denounce your brother, do not associate with him anymore, at least on social media, refrain from making videos talking about sexual assault or pedophilia, because regardless, just like Pyrocynical, regardless of if you make good points or not, the fans of the people that you call out, and the person could just point back to this situation and say that you're biased. Apparently, Tech, I don't have enough numbers to even talk to you, so what the hell do I know? It's just what I think is best for you. As a fan of who you used to be and what you used to stand for, I would love to see you go back to your old ways. But that's it for me. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. God, I'm so shit at outros too.
Hey, I got a call like from my dog like 101. Said they killed his only son because of insufficient funds. He was sobbing, he was mobbing, way belligerent and drunk, talking out his head, philosophing on what the Lord had done. He said, Kid, can you pray for me? It been a fucked up day for me. I know that you anointed, show me how to overcome. He was looking for some closure, hoping I can bring him closer to the spiritual. My spirit do know better, but I told him I can't sugarcoat the answer for you. This is how I feel. If somebody kill my son, that means somebody getting killed. Tell me what you do for love, loyalty and passion of all the memories collected, moments you can never touch. No one is available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.